So on today's show, the theme is everyday heroes. And of course, on this show, when I say everyday heroes, I'm talking about Black women. So the first clip I have is going to be of Congresswoman Maxine Waters, or as I like to affectionately call her, Mama Maxine. She is my political hero right now. There is no other woman on the planet dragging the absolute shit out of the current administration like she is. I respect her to death, and we need to protect her at all costs. Next, I speak to Diane, who's from a company called Blk Proverbs, and she has a clothing and accessory business that she built by herself, and it really highlights, you know, our thoughts and feelings as a community, but she does it in black and white. It's fantastic. You should check out her website. I then have an interview with author Brooke Obie, who wrote the book of Addis, Cradled, Embers, which is an extraordinary story about a young lady named Addis who in one terrifying moment becomes an unexpected hero. Finally, I will be sharing some alternatives to Shea Moisture, and I have a personal shout out to a young lady named Esha Jordan. Now, Esha went viral recently because she had a really compelling and thoughtful response to a comedian who made a joke, and I put that in real thick quotations, about Black women that just wasn't funny. I hope you enjoy it. So one of the reasons why I even approached Chris about Secret Sauce was because of the election. And it was amazing to me that we as a group voted 94% for a woman maybe we don't like, but we could respect. And we knew better than most that she would be a better representative of the country than the mustard Mussolini that we have in office now. And anytime a Black woman is out there fighting our causes, speaking our truths, she'll be on this show. If it's up to me, we talking about her. So today, we're going to talk about Miss Maxine, Mama Maxine. I respect her enormously, and I'm so happy that, and it's so apropos, right? That it's a Black woman out here fighting for us. She speaks our truth, and I want her to be heard. Period, point blank. So I'm going to play this moment that she had. She was giving it to him unflinchingly on a show that really isn't friendly to her. It's on, what's this full show called? Morning Joe. He's a complete jackass himself. But she didn't care. She talked about Trump with a smile. And she didn't care how that other chickie was looking at her. I love it. So I'm going to play her moment.
No, I wasn't at the inauguration speech, and I've not been at any of the ceremonial activities with this president.
Yeah, and the reason why wasn't a sign of disrespect. From what I heard, you said that you wanted to be respectful and that you might get a little emotional and might shout something out.
No. It's not that. It's just that I don't honor him. I don't respect this president. I don't think that he deserves to be president of this great country. I am very concerned about him, and I really think he's dangerous. And Joe, I don't know if you've seen the 6-part series that the LA Times wrote about him. It is scathing. I've never seen editorials like this before in my life. And so, you know, we continue to talk about him as if this is normal. This is abnormal, what we're experiencing with this president. And I have taken him on, as you know, and the millennials have joined me. And so I continue to talk about his ties to Russia and what I think all of that means. And as you know, I've continued to talk about, I believe, that if we have the credible investigations, that it will lead to his impeachment. I believe that.
She is a national treasure. Mama Maxine. So my guest for today is Diane, and she is from Blk Proverbs, and she calls it, what she calls her business is a t-shirt line that's grown up to be a full product line. And I kind of want Diane to explain it to all of us. So Diane, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Hello, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy. Like, the sun is shining. It's a good day.
That's what I'm talking about. At least, hey, look, at least it's shining for you, because right now it's dreary and ugly and raining in Atlanta. So
no.
I'm glad somebody's got some form of sun. Okay.
Yes, it's beautiful out here in Chicagoland.
So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 27 grad, pursuing my master's in entrepreneurship. I run Blk Proverbs, and I've been doing that since June 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, so quite a while. And I'm a youth instructor for St. Joseph Services, so I kind of do a few things right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that. The jack of all trades. I get that. So tell me a little bit about what Blk Proverbs is.
So Blk Proverbs is a blog that started out of a joke. What was going around this blog site called Tumblr was like things that Black people commonly say. And somebody was like, for 2013, somebody should put this all in one blog. And I was that one bored person that did it. And then a few months later, it just developed a viral blog following and became sort of an ethnography, a collection of like Black language that everybody contributed to. And it was just, it just grew overnight. And a year later, I decided to, start a business. That's it. So with Black, I decided, so that's where the Blk Proverb thing come from, but like it's labeled BLK. Because I wanted to associate some positive connotations with the word Black, and it stands for beauty, love, and knowledge. Because I would tell people I'm Black, and they would say like, no, say African American, like Black is a dirty word. Like, no, I'm Black.
Right.
And it's not a dirty word. So that's where it comes from for me, because I believe, like my Black is beautiful, my Black is loving, and my Black is knowledgeable, and that keeps me loving myself. So yeah, that's the brand. That's where it came from.
I love that. That's something that we need. We need those positive, affirmations for ourselves, because, they use the word Black as a negative word any other time. It's a dark night. The night is black. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't feel good. I'm feeling dark and moody, and, the word Black is used so negatively. So it's good that there is a business like yours where it's used in a more positive fashion. I respect that. Yeah. So tell me how Black women kind of influence you in your business.
Black women give me so much joy. Like, nobody gonna gas you up like another Black woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll see someone else on the street, they'll say, you look nice. You see a Black woman, she go, yes, honey, you doing it out here. Like, no, you didn't just stun on all of us. Like, what are you doing today? Like, you just decided to wake up and shit on everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, it turns into a whole tirade. You know what I'm saying? Like, absolutely. No one gives praise like us. No one loves and laughs like us. Like, I was at a bar last night with my line sisters, and like we're the loudest laughing ones in there, of course, like the stereotype always goes, but hey, like, that we're out here living and loving each other like intensely, and like I really make choices centered around whether a Black woman is going to be there or not.
That's what I'm
Like
talking
it's
about.
like they're just affirming in so many ways. Like it's just a sisterhood, and we know in being that like nobody really cares for us like we do.
That's
It's
right.
just it just gives me such joy, and like that sort of motivation or I take into the business with me because like when I went to a PWI with all those other people who didn't look like me, I had never missed home so much. I didn't know that like being around people that looked like me gave me that much joy. Being able to talk with people that sound like me gave me that much comfort. Like I just didn't know that I had this distinct culture, this distinct sisterhood even. And so it just gives me joy that I have like I'm having this conversation with Black people with this business. It's something that they specifically relate to. That's why I choose phrases that we've been saying since forever, as opposed to like what's popular and watered down by the media now. I just, you know what I'm saying? Like the only thing I have to do is stay Black and die. We've been saying since forever. That's on one of my shirts. It's just that type of Black that I love intensely. I love being Black. I say it all day.
Yes, girl. And I'm looking at your page, and you've got some great stuff out here. Like, I'm feeling this 3 Wishes coffee mug, like for real. So this 3 Wishes coffee mug says, I'd spend all 3 wishes wishing a nigga would. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That's, look, you get the slow clap for that one. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I spend all day doing that. Another one that's really good is Ain't Nobody Asked You. Absolutely.
That's my favorite. It really is. I honestly like,
Yeah. I'm
it's my
feeling that.
students the time or two. It tickles me every time.
I'm feeling that. Now, I see here that you have a Blk Proverbs Fist t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So this Fist t-shirt, does it have like all kinds of things that we say to each other or we say to other people? What was the meaning behind this Black Fist?
It was just like I kind of was like, let me list or think about all the words that I think of when I think of being Black, like what gives me that sort of comfort, what connects me to Black. And I just sort of just threw all those words in a cloud and put it on a fist because like that's a common, united, connected.
That's a sign for us.
Visual cue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and I think about the word mama being on there in that word cloud. But the Black matriarch is like very integral to the Black community, like church mothers and all that, like that, we stand on that. It's a very strong cornerstone. So many people come back to that in so many ways. If you don't have anybody, you got mama, but yeah, that's where that fist comes from. Black comfort, that idea.
I love it. You even have one here. Of course, you've got the beauty, love, knowledge, and I love that. That's a really cute shirt. Because I live in t-shirts, to be honest. I do. I live in t-shirts and jeans if I can get away with it.
I do too.
And the Not Today Satan, that's a good one. You have a Black Lives Matter t-shirt out here. So you've got some really great stuff. And I see that your color scheme is really black and white, and I love that as well.
Yep, and then I intentionally want to keep it that way forever. Like, I may do some special editions where the colors are inverted, but I just like this whole idea of being in black, like being dressed in it. It's just so beautiful and rich and regal to me. And just sort of just universal. I don't know. I think like there's this space is black and it's expansive and there's so much in it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just ongoing. It's forever. It's love to me. I just love the color black and I just want to assert that like it's beautiful. That's the whole intention of the brand.
Yo, thank you for that. I appreciate that. When when you say things like that and when you strive for that, that really helps us. And I appreciate that because, like I say every day, as Black women, as Black people, if we are not promoting and loving ourselves, no one else will. So I appreciate the fact that that's what you're doing with your business. So what do you see as your year goal and your 5-year goal for your business?
Ooh,
That's like a short idea of what you are expecting for yourself.
I mean, let me start off by saying that Blk Proverbs is not even one of the business ideas that I've had. Like, I'm
Okay.
just I've just had it my whole life. I didn't realize until very late that I was really an entrepreneur, but I realized that it gives me a lot of joy. Having said that, I feel like Blk Proverbs ventures ultimately all serving the Black community. So I would like a specific web series and like mini show geared toward centered around Black language relating to that. I mean, I would love to write that show. I also pursued a master's in screenwriting. So I would like that. I also love fitness, so I would love a Black fitness line, like something in addition, like I told or said as well. I'd like to publish my book based on the blog. I just have so many different goals that I would like for the business, also including like a nonprofit sector, because like service is really one of my goals in life. I feel like I always need to be able to give back and see how I can make the path wider for those behind me, because I didn't make it here by chance. Somebody invested in me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I also have the privilege of being just a naturally curious person. But I would like to be able to invite more people to the space to like create the lives we want, you know, instead of people handing it to us. So scholarships specifically for Black students, and also just more ways that I can give back in terms of like helping other people start businesses and investing in their ventures.
That is so dope. I love that. So tell me what you, beyond t-shirts and your coffee mugs and your pillows I see here, do you have some new things coming out?
Oh yeah, in another week I'll have shot glasses. I'm so excited about those. I designed them over 6 months ago, and I forgot that I put on one of them, "Let me talk my shit," and I'm really excited about that one, like, cause I say that a lot, like, for real, let me talk my shit, like, cause I know, let me get this off, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm really excited about that, and it's gonna be sold in a 4 set, so
Okay.
I think people will really enjoy those. And then by the end of the year, we'll see. Like, I'm really hoping that I can have the capital to be self-published. Yeah, I just want to keep growing and say.
Well, good luck to that and to you for all that. I really think, I really wish big things for you, you know? So tell people about how they can get in touch with you and how they can look at what you have available for them to purchase.
Awesome. So my website is God, I'm already doing the social media. My website is Blk Proverbs, blkproverbs.com. So it follows all the social media, Twitter at Blk Proverbs, Instagram at Blk Proverbs, Tumblr, the same, tumblr.com/Blk Proverbs. If you want to see the blog, there's all sorts of things. All those go back. They're all spelled the same, Blk Proverbs.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else that you wanted people to know about you before we, end the call?
You can also reach me on my personal social media at Mad Diane Can. You know,
You're absolutely giving me life today. Thank
I
you.
mean, you know, I also say like rational Diana won't, but mad Diane can like piss me off and like watch what I can do. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna show bet on me type of things. Um, but I would love to talk. Like I love talking to other people. I've collaborated with a lot of other businesses. Um, having cross promotional photo shoots. I've collaborated with dancers, with artists, all wearing or doing something with Black Proverbs gear that you can find on the site. So I love talking with other businesses. I love talking with other people. I'm nice, so you
You're so
can reach
funny.
out to me, and we can talk anytime.
All
It's a
right.
favorite thing to do.
Well, thank you for joining me. It's been a lot of fun. I wish you nothing but the best for your business.
Thank you, thank you. Can I shout out my friend Lana?
Absolutely. Please. What's your Black woman shout out?
Um, my friend Lana at Hunter Gather Her. She's a
Mhm.
dope artist, producer. She produces all of her music and sings over it.
Oh,
She's just
wow.
incredible. You all should check out her music and her
Okay.
art.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
All
Thanks for
right, thank
joining me
you.
today.
This is fun.
So, my guest today is Brooke. She wrote a book called Book of Addis, Cradled, Embers, and it's an excellent book. I love the book from the very first page. Brooke, are you there?
Hey, yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me. So, Brooke, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am an author and an editor, and that's what I do with my time. What would you like to know?
Well, a little bit about who you are, like why you became an author. Tell me that.
Okay. So I was working at a law firm in DC, doing communications, and it just I was writing for other people. I spent the majority of my career after law school, crafting other people's thoughts, and breaking everything down into, something that was digestible for the public, like high concept legal terms and I really just wanted to find my own voice. I really wanted to say something for myself and for Black people specifically. And it was around, I guess, 2009, 2010. There was a lot of hype around like the Hunger Games and things like that. So I like to read, what people are talking about. And I read the books and I enjoyed them fine, but it was more like the conversation around these books. Like, wow, can you imagine if something this terrible ever happened in real life? And I'm like, has anyone heard of slavery?
Right.
That happened. And it was not great for the children. So, I started to think about the ways in which we're allowed to talk about dystopia, and that, white dystopia is often things happening to white people that were done to Black people first. And so I really wanted to focus on that. I wanted to center Black people in a story. And, so that's why I started to write fiction, as opposed to, at the time I was, doing a lot of nonfiction writing. And also I had a blog where I was, talking about, it was a personal and lifestyle blog. So I was doing a lot of nonfiction writing, but through fiction, I just started to think about the ways in which, you can reimagine the world, and things can happen in fiction that didn't actually happen in real life. But by writing it down, by creating it and then putting it out into the world, it exists in a way. That reality exists, and other people can join you in that reality, when they're reading the book, and how that impacts them and how they, may make different decisions with their own lives. Like that reality is now real. It's tangible, and other people can participate in that with you. So that's why, I wanted to write this book And, it's the first of a 3-part series. So I really wanted to kind of create this world so that we can all just live in a different one, particularly now when things just really, really suck in America. And there's nowhere you can go. There's no place you can go where you're not going to be persecuted. There's not going to be a place where anti-Blackness doesn't exist. Right. So in this, series, I guess there are these people who constantly are fighting anti-Blackness, not only from the outside, but also within themselves. And through that kind of path of healing, like hopefully the reader can go on that journey to filter out anti-Blackness as well and bring, some of these, fictional ideas and occurrences and bring them into actual world.
Okay, that's interesting. So when I read your book, I found your book to be compelling from the very first page, right?
Thank you.
From the very first page, I was in. But it's a tough read. Let's keep it real. We lived a tough life. Do you know what I mean? And but it's also I found the lead character to be powerful and interesting, and she's full of she has her problems as well, but she's a woman that I respect and I adore, and I understood where she was coming from. And so one of my questions about the book is, now this character could have been done at any time period, right? But you chose the time period that you chose. Why did you choose that time period for her?
Yeah, so just to, I guess, give some background for listeners about what the book is.
Okay, perfect.
So Addis is a 17-year-old enslaved girl. She's been enslaved to the first president of America, and she escapes from him and is able to start a revolution. And so I chose 1790s timeline for the story because, like you said, things, it could have been any time. A lot of things that happened during slavery, the repercussions of that we still feel today. That's generational trauma that, Black people in this country still carry. And so I thought, how can it was 2012 when I started writing this book. How can I, heal from something that I didn't even have a part of? There's a saying, all the women inside me are tired. It's like there's generations of trauma that have been passed down. And so I'm dealing with things that don't even belong to me, Sure. And so I thought, you got to go back to the beginning. You can't have an America that is healed, that is living up to, all of its claims, until you go back to the beginning and you fix what was done there. We can't, it's like trying to reform the police, right? It was created to snatch Black people from freedom and put them into slavery. There's no reforming the police.
Correct.
You have to start over. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back to the foundation of America as a country and, try and fix it and look at, the revolutions that happened around the world, and what made those revolutions successful, what made Haiti's revolution successful, and try to put those conditions into America, in 1790s and just go from there.
Yeah, the story about Addis is it's heartbreaking and it is beautiful. It's outright beautiful. And one of the things that I loved is that you made some decisions in this book that when I've read other books about this time frame that they haven't made. One of the decisions that you made, or one of the things that you did in your book, was to use their native tongue. So the way that they spoke back in that time frame. Whereas a lot of books that I read, they speak like how I speak right now, which is unreasonable and, come on, ridiculous, but it makes for an easier read. So why did you decide to use the native tongue? I found that interesting.
Yeah, and so even in the books that are about slavery or enslaved people, it will be written by a third person, right? It's written by a narrator who can write in English, in standard English, and then maybe the dialogue between characters will be just the vernacular. But I chose to write this in third person, but also to have that third person speak the same language as the enslaved people spoke, because I wanted to make sure that the reader knew that the lens was different. This third party narrator, is not some, person outside of the community who's like observing them, from a distance. The narrator is often the god of the universe of the book. Sure. And so in this book, the god of the universe is Black and is a part of this community and understands their language and is trustworthy. You know what I'm saying? So like there's, I looked at a lot of slave narratives, and in many cases, formerly enslaved people who were working, with abolitionists to tell their stories, it was often written by or validated in some way by a white person, just so you know this is true, I'm standing here and, I'm writing the foreword to this book. Or they'll write the whole thing. And say, this is because, the enslaved person wasn't able to read or write. And so I wanted to make sure that this was just a different, thing, not just because one is fiction and one is nonfiction, but also because there is no white validator. There's nobody saying that there's nobody that needs to come along and say, this is a true story. What's happening here is true and you can trust it. You're going to listen to the Black characters who are going to speak for themselves. You're going to listen to the people in this community who are going to speak for themselves. And, you're going to have to accept it as the truth, because there is no person that's going to come along and reassure you. There is no white savior in this story at all. And that was intentionally done. And also, I talked earlier about this journey of filtering out anti-Blackness that Addis goes through as a character. Some other characters go through that journey as well. I was going through that journey when I was writing the book. And so, I had been, indoctrinated, my entire life, to speak proper English. And what does that mean? What is proper and what is improper? There can be standard English, but the way Black people speak, throughout the diaspora, whatever language, was put upon them, we've taken that and we've made something beautiful out of it. We combine what we're able to recall, just even rhythmically, from West African languages. And we're creators. We create our own thing, and it's beautiful. It's poetic. And that's what I wanted to show by writing in the vernacular with this book and having the narrator, speak in vernacular. So it was really important to me to see, the beauty and the poetry in the way that Black people speak. And that it can be just as poetic, it can be just as valid, it can be just as proper as any other form of English. So there are multiple reasons why I chose to do that. And, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope more people enjoy that as well. That was definitely a hindrance to me getting published in the beginning. So I'm glad that I did not go back and write it in standard English, because there were several people who wanted me to do that, but or publishers that wanted me to go back and rewrite it in standard English, and that just was not something that I was willing to do. That wasn't, the intention of the book was not to be palatable to a white audience. It was to tell the story of these enslaved people, and to feel like, I had done some research and really connected with, my ancestors in writing this book. And, if people enjoyed it, that would be great and that would be wonderful. But there was not going to be any compromise as far as, watering it down and making it accessible to people who may not be interested in the story otherwise.
Well, let me be clear. I thought it was dope that you did that, because even though this is a fiction book, it made the story much more realistic, and it validated who they were much more to me than if you use proper English. And as a woman from Alaska who grew up around no Black people, trust me, I understand the need for quote unquote proper English, but and the struggle with it as a woman of color. The things that people say to me, if I'm around white people, then I speak, what is the word that they use? They love the way I use proper English, which infuriates me. And then if I'm around my people, it's you speak white. So I understand the juxtapose between the two. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I love the way that you let them speak in their own language, because it was much more authentic. It's just much more authentic that way. It does mean that when you read it, because you're not used to that language, you have to, take your time and read the story, and sometimes go back and read that page again to make sure you understand what happened. But I loved it. So I just wanted you to know that part. So let's talk about some of the things that you have in the book itself, because I want to talk about every bit of your book. I want to talk about what you put in each content section, some of your acknowledgments, and then some of the characters. I don't want to give the story away because I want people to read this book. I think it's important for us, especially as Black women, to read this book. But I do want us to kind of go over some of the things that I thought were important. Okay. So when I look at the contents of the book itself, in the prologue, each one of your contents, really in one sentence, you're able to give a good idea what was about to happen to the character. So I'm going to read the prologue. The prologue is, no one attends the homegoing of a suicide, which the story of Dido, right? The prologue, and you use the word suicide, which I found interesting. So tell me a little bit about that. Not too much, but tell me a little bit about that. And who Dido was.
Yes. So Dido starts off the book. She is grandmother to Addis, the main character. And through this head injury that Addis has, as a result of, trying to protect her dying father, she's able to have these visions and dreams, and it's a very spiritual connection, very similar to what Harriet Tubman really had in real life. And so through these dreams and visions, she's able to connect with her grandmother Dido and see what happened to Dido. And so in this prologue, Dido has found out that her 12-year-old daughter is being molested by their master. And so she, takes 2 weeks and comes up with a plan with her brother. And she wants to basically stop their master from molesting her daughter. And of course, in this time, she is property and her daughter is property. Her daughter isn't even her daughter. Legally, they all belong to this man. And that means that the man can do whatever he wants to do with any of them. So she's already, on this path of deciding that, she's going to take some agency. And when enslaved people take agency, that could be considered suicide. Whether you're trying to run away, whether you're trying to, even just, breaking the tools that you're supposed to be using in order to say, I can't work today. The tools aren't working, or, when I was at Monticello recently, we were learning about how the enslaved people there would claim to lose blankets so that, because it was so cold. So they would have to, the overseers would have to give them more blankets because they lost their blankets. And that was, a lie, obviously, but it was also a way to get more blankets into, their communities so that they could stay warm in the wintertime when it was freezing cold in those cabins. So if you're lying, if you're stealing materials, if you're stealing resources, if you're trying to escape, anytime you try to take agency as an enslaved person, you're risking your life. And so that's why, I thought, suicide was relevant to this chapter of these people who are trying to choose agency and how other people look at it. That it can either be lauded or it can be, there can be this kind of anti-Black defeatist attitude that can occur in the community as well. Like, why would you do that? Why would you try to get out of this situation? Why don't you just accept it like I have?
Why are you making waves?
Yeah.
Why are you making waves? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, it's again, anti-Blackness is something that we are all socialized with. Mm-hmm. And, that's something that we all have to filter out, and be able to identify first. And then, figure out a way to heal from that and get that out of our system and our way of thinking. And that takes a long time. So, yeah, it's possible that when you try to step out of line, that, you could be rejected by your community, by the people that you're trying to help. So it's just all something, for all of us to consider.
And wouldn't you say that we still go through that today?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, there's so much about the things that are happening in this book, just misogynoir, for one, and even the tendency, internalized misogyny, where, Addis has this issue with her mother. Like she just can't connect with her mother. She doesn't respect her mother because her mother is an enslaved person and she's an enslaved person as a result of her mother. And so, it's the ways in which that we blame mothers and judge mothers, Black mothers in particular, for the problems of the Black community, when, it was never the Black mother's fault in the first place. But, legally, children were considered enslaved based on the status of their mother. So we have this whole socialization that trains us to be against our mothers, that trains us to judge our mothers more harshly than we would our fathers. So yeah, it's definitely, there's so many issues as a result of slavery that still exist today. And so, hopefully there are a lot of themes in the book that are that people can identify with in present time.
I definitely want to talk some more about Taddy, but I when I talk about what's happening today, like for instance, the Black Lives Matter movement. So you have some people that support the Black Lives Matters movement, right? And we talk about it and we try to get the word out and we want people to fight, our oppression that we're in at this current time. But there's still plenty of Black people that shit on the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Because they feel like, oh, why don't you just be quiet? What you're doing isn't helping. You're going to get us killed, and those type of attitudes and thoughts are reflected in this story as well, because you have characters, in this book that are like, what are you doing? Just be happy that you have a home. Just be happy that, you're not somewhere on a, somewhere, where you're out in the field. You should just be happy doing what you're doing, Addis. Be like me, and that has a lot to do with who Taddy was. But I also thought that Taddy was a protector, right? So in her own way, she was trying to protect Addis from some of the things that she went through, but she couldn't protect her. Am I making sense?
Absolutely. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's what it is. I mean, what you just said actually just reminds me of that mother in Baltimore during
Oh yeah. Where
that
she
was
was hitting her
happening.
kid. Yeah.
Yes, and whooping her son for being involved in the protest. And so, it became this public spectacle where white people and even some black people were praising her for doing that, for shaming him for trying to be a part of protests to bring about change in Baltimore. And it's about survival, really. Like that's where we learned, we beat our children to protect them in a very sick way. Like that's, we harm our own kids to prevent other people from harming them. If they
Exactly.
learn that this behavior is bad from us, then they will go out into the world and they'll behave in a different way. But the reality is, as we've seen with Tamir Rice, as we've seen with Aiyana Stanley Jones, as we've seen with Rekia Boyd, there's so many people. There is Philando Castile. Like, you don't have to be doing anything wrong to die by the hands of the state.
No, you can name them all. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so we think that there's this way we can negotiate our blackness, right? We think that if we pull up our pants and don't litter and some other things Don Lemon was mentioning, like if we act like people deserving of respect, then people will respect us, and that's never been the case. We are people
Who
should be
deserve
respected
respect.
because
That's
we
right.
exist. Like
Exactly.
that is enough.
Exactly.
You can wear your hoodie and walk down the street and still be seen as a human being by people who are, compassionate, empathetic humans. So it's not what we're wearing. It's not the way we speak. It's not how much education we have or don't have. Those are all, intraracially, those are our class issues, those respectability politics that make us feel like, it just makes us feel better. It makes us feel like there's a way that we can protect our children. If we teach them, to put their hands on the steering wheel and say, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, then they'll be safe. And that's just really not the world that we live in. So I think if we were to get, busier, focusing on the ways to make, structural, institutional change, as opposed to trying to change, who we are, to limit ourselves, then I think that would be energy, better spent.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like, I think we went from a time period in the 70s where we fought for our rights. Then we felt like, at least some people felt like they had their rights. So now just be quiet and walk a straight line and, keep your pants up and don't talk back to people and you'll be fine. And now we're living in a world where we see, no, all that was wrong, and all that respectability politics was garbage. They still see us as trash. So
yeah, it was never like that. We never went through a period where, things were fine.
Exactly.
It's just now we have, we have no gatekeepers when it comes to, seeing police brutality on tape on a mass scale. We have people who can record themselves. And even with that, there's no guarantee that anybody's going to be prosecuted. I mean, you're less likely to be prosecuted with all the video evidence, that we have. So yeah, there's just we're more aware of it now on a wider scale. I mean, I don't even think it's us. I definitely think it's people outside of the Black community are more aware of it because that was something that they could ignore or they could, and it's still being ignored actually. There's still this idea that there is no problem with police brutality when it comes to Black and brown people. But we have video evidence, we have statistics. And so, people are more aware that it's happening, but it's not new. I mean, it was one of the main tenets of, the Black Panther Party, was to stop police brutality. So nothing that's happened, is new. And like I said, police, came from slave patrols.
Yep.
So, there's none of the stuff that we're dealing with today is a new thing. And so until we heal those very, very old things that are kind of intrinsic to what it means to be in America, to be in America is, to be a part of violence. This whole country was founded on the genocide and rape and erasure of Native and Black people. So, you can't escape that. So until that's healed, we're always going to have this country. We're always going to live in this kind of a country. Those are always going to be our unspoken ideals.
You're exactly right. I totally agree with that. And when I look at some of the characters you had in the story, they reflect the people that are here today, right? So we talked a little bit about Taddy and her need to protect her daughter by having her daughter do some of the same things that she went through, or by trying to get her daughter to follow her footsteps. That is how she saw as protecting her daughter, right? Like, she didn't know any other way. Perhaps if she put herself out there, maybe Master would leave her daughter alone. You know what I mean? Then you have Nene. And I found...
I can just go back on Taddy, because I feel like there is something there too. It reminds me of when you were talking earlier about, kind of generational differences in the way that we respond to trauma.
Right.
Taddy, when she was 12 years old, she had this mom who did do something different. This woman Dido went out of her way to protect Taddy.
She did.
And there were very negative consequences. And so Taddy grew up with that trauma too. She knows what happens when you step out of line and when you try to protect other people. And so this person, Taddy grew up without a mother. So she's thinking, for one, how can I stay alive? And two, how can I keep my daughter alive? But also, how can I, what is it that I have to do, to remain somebody who's still alive for my kid, because I know the trauma of growing up without a mom. And so those choices that you make, it can be, it seems, cruel what Taddy is trying to convince Addis is okay. It seems cruel to have this scene of her, explaining why she just needs to go along to get along. But she is trying. I mean, that is the best that she can do at this time. And so when I think about, our parents who may, be critical of the Black Lives Matter movement, they saw things that we didn't necessarily have to see. I mean, There was definitely more. It's coming back around now, but I mean, there were definitely times where it was more blatant. As in not being able to drink from the same water fountain, be in the same spaces as white people. And there's a lot of segregation that continues today, but I mean, that's traumatic. And so I try to have these characters in the book so that I can, I guess, express empathy for them. The way we all are dealing with trauma the best way that we can. And it sucks when the way that you deal with trauma is harmful to other people who are traumatized. And we need to fix that, but also just understand where it comes from. So that there isn't any, generational like hatred that's happening, that there is some empathy that for those people and for what they went through. Even for the Stacey Dashes and the Ben Carsons of the world, what do we do with them? Those people exist in the book too. Like, do they get to come along for the revolution, or, what happens to them?
I thought that, to me, Taddy was just about survival. Which is, she just wanted her daughter to survive. She just wanted to, make sure her son survived. She just wanted to survive. And why not, with that type of thought process, of course you're going to be more amenable to the things that maybe I find horrendous and gross. Do you know what I mean? But all she wanted to do was make sure her daughter survived. And how can you blame a mother for that? You know what I mean? So I respected Taddy, but on the other side, I was like, oh my God, Taddy, what are you doing? Like, I was going back and forth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, she was going back and forth too. She doesn't, and I feel like, that was the main point of that, was just to show that everybody is doing the best that they can do with
Right.
this. Like, this is not ours. You know, we didn't cause this trauma.
Right.
We didn't cause this generational trauma. We did not create the circumstances that have harmed us so tremendously. And so the way each of us handles trauma is going to be different, and it's going to be problematic, and, you know, it's going to be messy. But if we can give each other some grace, if we can try to, you know, get to the root of why we're making the decisions that we're making, then hopefully we can have some community healing there.
And if you watch the journey of Addis and her mother, because I'm still talking about Taddy at this point, if you watch her in the beginning, she really hated Taddy and didn't understand why Taddy was doing the things that she did. In the end, she came to a better understanding of who Taddy was, even before the very end. But like when, you know, she moves and she meets a new person called Sabine, she starts to understand who her mother truly was and how she never gave her mother a chance because she saw her from one position. You know what I mean?
But that doesn't go away, you know, like even she's had, you know, 17 years at this point to, well, I guess, so she was 5 years old when she was separated from her mother. So she's had about 12 years to kind of, you know, ferment this hatred for her mother. And that doesn't, you know, she gets some understanding of her, but that's something I think that she, you know, is going to continue to carry.
Sure. All right. So can you talk a little bit about Nene or Nene?
Sure.
So tell me, I saw her as a, if I was to use her as a reflection of people that I see today, I saw her as somebody who loved Addis, of course, but understood why Taddy did what Taddy did and didn't want Addis to judge her mother for the decisions that she made and wanted Addis to kind of back down from the hatred she had instead respect Taddy for the decisions. Yeah.
Or just her humanity. You know, you don't have to, like, I don't respect Stacey Dash's decisions or Ben Carson's decisions. You know, like, I don't respect their decisions. I respect that they are human beings that are dealing with trauma. And I think that was the point that Nene wanted to get across to Addis, that, you know, just what I was saying earlier, you know, that we are not in complete control of our circumstances, and we're making decisions for survival. There are plenty of Black people who, you know, once they get out of their situations, they will Booker T. Washington it up, like, you know, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, like I did, even though that's just not the case at all. You know, you look back through these people's lives, you see, you know, the random blessings that they had that other people weren't able to get, which helped them to get to where they are. So, you know, there are plenty of people in the community who think that the way to success is ideal. It's about accumulating things and money, and therefore, you know, social status. It's about getting into these certain, I guess, clubs that will allow you, I guess, to negotiate your Blackness a little bit. And they think that, you know, it helps. It helps if you really believe that this is the way to do things, so that when other people are being brutalized, you know, when other people are being oppressed, you can say, well, you know, that's not my problem. You have it helps you to release responsibility for being a part of that community. If you can just say, well, it's an individual responsibility for you to take care of your own life, and you can completely ignore the systemic issues that are, you know, intrinsic to living in this country as a Black person. And so, Nene doesn't want Addis to come to that conclusion, because Addis isn't out working in the field. She's working in a garden, which is a status thing as well. She's not inside the house. But, you know, she's not, you know, she has the shade of trees to work under. She has just a very specific job to do. And that can, you know, separate her from other people in the community. And that's something that Nene doesn't want to happen. So, she's trying to instill in her this idea of, respecting the journey that people are on with their trauma, and not to be someone who was full of hate, even when hate is appropriate, even when that is an appropriate response to trauma. Nene doesn't want this child that she loves to be so burdened down, not just physically, but also, emotionally enslaved and controlled by people outside of herself.
I think that especially when it comes to valid feelings of hate, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a section in the book where Addis was able to eat a peach. And I thought about that. Like, that wasn't normal to be able to be in an area of the garden where you weren't watched at all times, and you were able to eat something. It seems really small to us, right? But you were able to eat a peach in peace and quiet without any repercussions. That just wasn't the life of a regular slave. And so Addis did live a quote more privileged life, perhaps, than the people in the field.
Yeah, but so for one, with the peach, I mean, she definitely stole that peach because that she doesn't own the garden. So that again, I really wanted to get to this myth that Black people just accepted slavery tacitly, and it's Black people's fault that slavery lasted as long as it did. It was just something that, everybody just accepted. And that's just not true. Even if it was stealing a peach, and eating it, and holding on to the seed to plant in your own garden, that was an act of rebellion. Yep. That was an act of war, And so I also wanted to get to this idea that, there was a good kind of slavery. Like that, people who lived in the house or people who weren't out in the fields, like, yes, there's a privilege there. That doesn't mean that the slavery that they experienced was good or better in any way. There's no good version of enslavement of another human being. It's inherently cruel. It's inherently disgusting. It's not something that is okay. And so, when people, like Bill O'Reilly and some other people on Fox News, when Michelle Obama made that comment about, living in a house that was built by enslaved people. And, Bill O'Reilly had this whole segment on his show about, how the enslaved people were fed and housed and, they got some benefit, I guess, out of being forced to build this White House. I mean, it just, even in modern times, there's a persistent myth that, slavery was somehow good or that there was something, useful that came out of it, whether it was, white Jesus, which is another theme that's dealt with in the book, or a place to live. I mean, the West Africans that white people stole and brought to this country, they had places to live. They had families. They had their own languages. They had their own cultures. There was nothing that, West Africans needed that was lacking that they could find through enslavement in America. It's just a completely ridiculous and dehumanizing, ignorant argument to make. And so I really wanted to get to that. I wanted, Addis to be in this position of privilege to show that there is absolutely no way that we can accept a good kind of slavery. Like, it doesn't exist.
There's no such thing.
Not in the world.
So, on the back of that, let's talk about, and he was only in the book for a short amount of time, but I found his character really interesting, and I'm talking about Basil Lee. So that's Addis's brother. If you'll talk a little bit about who he was. Sure.
So he is the son of Taddy, and is the product of rape between the president, who is their enslaver, and Taddy. And so he's in this, weird situation He has not ever been publicly claimed, obviously, by his father, though he does receive some benefits. There is this idea that Taddy has that because he is a member of the family, of the president of America's family, that he will somehow be protected. She actually has two sons who are the products of rape. And she believes that they are safer than Addis is. For one, because they're boys. And so there's an idea that they will be safe from sexual harm. But there is even, a mention of the fact that, a nearby enslaver actually very routinely rapes male children on his plantation. So there is actually there is no escape. Like there's no safety. There is no, automatic protection, even being related to the enslaver. Like that's, we think that, the closer we are to whiteness, whether in skin color or by behavior, and culture, that there's safety in that. Like that's where respectability politics comes from that we were talking about earlier. It's proximity to whiteness. The closer we are to whiteness, the closer we are to being accepted, to being brought into the family. And that's just not the reality. So that's something, Basil Lee is a child. So I give him a break for, thinking the way that he thinks. Sure. But, there's just, it's a lesson for adults, really, for teenagers and adults alike. Proximity to whiteness is not going to save you. It's just not. Not ever.
And the moral of his story is it could be just as lethal, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So let's talk about who Sabine is, because I found her character interesting. Because she's dealing with misogynoir. I always have a hard time speaking that. And tell me a little bit about her.
So there's this portion of the book when Addis and her mother travel with Birkin, their enslaver, who is the president. He's going to Philadelphia. And so, he's set up to run the country from Philadelphia. And he's able to take some people along with him. And his niece, Sabine, lives in Philadelphia as well, with a husband that her uncle, Birkin, arranged for her to marry. And so she is a very, very wealthy white woman who is connected to the first president of the country. But she tries to use her white privilege to help enslaved people get to freedom, whether that's by, buying them or doctoring free papers or paying somebody to doctor free papers for them. She's kind of helps along the Underground Railroad of their time, basically. And but she also, she's got, some white savior issues that she's going to have to work through. And she gets checked repeatedly by people because she is just not aware of the reality that, like she is like the typical, white liberal feminist woman.
Exactly.
She considers herself an ally and she has good intentions, but she's just also very just harmful in the way that she thinks about the world and the way that she thinks about her role in the world and in the movement. And so, she's just kind of hopefully a lesson for allies in, not centering yourself, and not trying to make yourself the hero of somebody else's story.
Exactly.
Staying in your lane.
I mean, I think that she had some great intentions. Yeah. But the way she went about it, consistently was way too much. And, it reflects in her story as well. So I like that part of it. And she very much was a white liberal. Like
Yeah.
to the T. Like you wrote that just like
Well,
a white female
I've had a
liberal.
lot of experience
Right.
with white feminists, so
Yeah, she was absolutely a white feminist, and I love the reaction that Addis had to her initially, and even later on in the story, but her initial reaction, she wasn't here for Sabine.
yeah.
And I also liked the way that some of the other characters that came into play a little bit later in the book reacted to her. I found it interesting that even in her story, she's a white woman. She was basically sold into marriage. It wasn't like as if she wanted to be there. And
Yeah.
I found her story interesting. And then how her husband never saw it that way. Like, it amazes me.
It's a sign of the times, though, too. Like patriarchy. It's always been in this country since the foundation,
Oh,
and
sure.
so, yeah, there in that white women are oppressed by white men. But the thing is, so many, in order to protect their whiteness, in order to protect their privileged status, are just complicit. They are. A part of the conspiracy of white supremacy. And so, even, your oppression alone by white men does not, unite all of us. Because if you're using your position, if you don't want to end, I guess, the privilege that you have, if you're not willing to sacrifice that, for everyone else's greater good, then you're a dangerous person, and you have to prove your trustworthiness, and no one should trust anyone who wants to maintain the status quo. And so a lot of abolitionists actually who didn't believe that slavery was okay, but they also didn't believe in being neighbors or married to black people. It's not like, okay, well, they're not animals, but like, are they human? I mean, so there's that element too. So, just because people wanted to end slavery does not mean, that they were gung-ho about equal rights or considering black people to be fully human or as human as they are, deserving of the same things they were, so it's just, that's just liberal white people, of their time. So, you have to, I guess, just figure out, who is trustworthy. If you're not down for, completely overhauling this racist system, if you are attached in any way to your status, to your privilege, and not willing to sacrifice that, then you can't be trusted. And that just kind of goes for everybody.
Yeah, and to take it back to what's happening in these times, look how white women did the election.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, this guy is talking about grabbing women's pussies. That should be enough for you to back away. Is the racism that he exhibits. That should be enough for you to back away. But instead, you vote for someone that's going to help you keep things the way they are. And you did that to be complicit with the white men in your life.
Exactly. So, that's when we consider, who our allies are, that's just not really a term that I believe in. And Addis is also very skeptical of that, when she sees this woman who's like, I'm on your side. We have the same struggles. Like, no, we don't actually. And I don't know that you're on my side. And if, there is a distrust there that is warranted, if 53% of white women voted for Trump, like, I'm looking at every one of y'all, like, I mean, because my chances are 1 out of 2. Like, I
absolutely.
How am I supposed to trust that, you're a safe person for me? There has to be some history here. And even with that history, you get down to there are people who have been losing friendships that they've had for 15, 20 years because there were things that they just didn't know about that person. I mean, I definitely remember a time, I overheard a friend of mine, a non-Black woman of color, I was in her house, and she was talking to another non-black woman of color on the phone, and they were just like throwing the N-word around to each other. And then my friend was like, "Oh no, we can't say that. We've got a real nigga right here."
Oh, good Lord.
And
Oh, oh,
I was like, "I've known you for
oh.
years. We have been best friends. Like, I have gone to law school. Like, I have all these things, in my life and that are going well. I'm doing well. I speak standard English, like, and you still consider me a nigger. Like, so that to me, that was my wake up call. Like, oh, so I can't actually negotiate my blackness. And, that's not something I will ever be able to escape in this system. Even, with non-black people of color, this is not necessarily a safe space. So that was a very, a wake up call that I had very young. And it definitely shaped, my ideas around respectability politics, and kind of began the process of me releasing that, as an ideology that I certainly was a champion of it when I was in school, because that's just the way we were socialized. So yeah, like we just have to be careful. We have to be really careful and understand even that, we've all been socialized with anti-blackness. And if we're not actively every single day trying to combat that, if we're not actively trying to filter that out, it's going to seep out of us in some way, whether it's the way we think, whether it's the way we talk, whether it's the way we respond to somebody else who's going through trauma. We'll be like, well, what were you wearing? Well, why didn't you just leave? Like all those kinds of things that, perpetuate, whether it's rape culture, whether it's, systemic racism that we're perpetuating, or internalized racism that we're perpetuating. If we're not actively working on that, it's going to cause harm, not only to us, but to other people in our communities. So yeah, I definitely believe that people can be well-intentioned. People can want to be allies, but, you're going to have to consistently be working to prove that. I mean, I don't know. Were you able to watch Henrietta Lacks last night on
I didn't
HBO?
get a chance to. No, how was it?
So Oprah is phenomenal. I actually got to interview her for this movie on Tuesday, so I just was the highlight of my life. Like, and she's phenomenal in this film. But there is this relationship with the white woman who actually wrote the book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, and the daughter of Henrietta Lacks, Deborah, and how they just have a very, this white woman is trying to write this book, and she's not really understanding why she can't get, these black people in this family to cooperate with her in writing this book, and how, like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to get your mom's story out. But yeah, you're also going to make a whole lot of money off of this. And, that has been the reality of the people who stole their mother's cells in the first place.
Exactly.
And then even those same doctors who stole her mother's cells, came to Deborah Lacks and stole her, told her she was being tested for cervical cancer, which is what her mother died of. And her brothers were being tested too, supposedly, even though they don't have cervixes. But, there's been so much, theft and,
lies.
Exactly. Or from the white community, not only in the medical industry, but also just growing up in, the South in the 50s. So this white woman is like, you should just trust me, and fuck you if you don't trust me. Like, no. If you want to work in this community, for one, why are you working in this community? Why aren't you going to your own community? Which is something that was told to Sabine. Why don't you go to white people and talk to white people about slavery if you have a problem with it? Like, why are you
Why are you here?
Exactly.
Why should I trust you? Yeah.
Yeah, this is weird. We're doing what we're doing over here. Why don't you go in your own community and sweep in front of your own door? And so that's something that, Sabine has to deal with as well. But mostly I just wanted to make sure that there was no white savior in this story. that, there were so many Black people, there were so many enslaved people who were, rebelling on their own. They didn't need a white person to come in and tell them, hey, you deserve a better life. Like, they knew they deserved better lives, and whether it was beaten out of them or, they're living in terror every single day. That can change, that can change a lot about who you are as a person. And that's what happens to Taddy as well. And Addis is a younger person. She's dealt with trauma, for just a less amount of time than her mother has. And I think maybe as you get older, you do accept things more easily than you did when you were younger, because it's just, you've been conditioned for so long. So, it was important to have a young person who wasn't fully, even though you're socialized from birth with these things, but I mean, there's still this idea that hasn't been beaten out of you yet, that you deserve something better. And then when you come into contact with white people who, want to, run your story, to take you basically from one master to another master, one white savior to another white savior, that you can be resistant to that. But you can say, like, no, this is not what I want for my life. This is not what I want for my people. Like, and we don't need this.
Yeah.
We don't need to tell us that we deserve freedom. We know we deserve freedom.
Exactly. And we don't need you to save us and be the person who thinks that you are now in charge, that you've made the decisions on my life, or that you've made that type of impact on my life. I'm sick of white savior stories.
It's so played. It's so played. And beyond that, like, what they're telling Sabine is save yourself, like, whiteness is complicit, like, you are responsible. This is damaging to you too. And we see that also with the character Haynes, who is an overseer. He's a cutter. He deals with his own trauma by cutting himself. Yes. And so that is just really, a metaphor for what racism actually does. Like, you think it's your privilege. You think it is helping you to have a better life. You are being poisoned and you don't even know it. You're drinking it willingly because you think that there's some privilege here that makes you better than other people, makes you have a better experience than other people. And you're not willing to challenge it. But the reality is that you are killing yourself just as much as you are killing other people. And so it's your responsibility to save yourself. Go, talk about, find out what whiteness is. I think there's a very good article, on the establishment that's asking white people to examine whiteness. You don't need to understand Black people better. You need to understand white people. If you understand white people, then you understand how so much, trauma has been inflicted on people of color throughout the world. If you understand that, then you can do something about that. Then you can challenge that. But, if you continue to be ignorant about whiteness and what white supremacy does, not just to you, but to everyone else, then you can actually be of use in the movement. Like, you can play a role in the movement, and you can, be combating whiteness directly, as opposed to, I guess, combating, whatever blanket, issues that you think, it's not my Blackness that's the problem.
It's your whiteness.
It's not my Black womanness that's the problem. Like, you
whiteness.
Can stay focused.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's your whiteness. Yeah, I mean, the election really, there was a lot of people that separated after that election. A lot of people. You started to see who they really were. And I think, with your book, Sabine, she was able to see who Sabine was from the moment she met her, because she didn't have interactions with white people like that. So she already came, with the side eye that I think Black women are born with. Yeah. When it comes to, because I keep trying to juxtapose what's happening now to what's happening in your book. And, during the election, like I had some friends that I knew for years, talked about our lives, loved each other. I loved their family. Went over to the house, had a blast with them, shared drinks. And I never forget, after the election, she never said any of this before. It wasn't until after the election when she felt comfortable enough to say it. But she said, well, I'm glad that Obama is out of office because we let him have this time. We let him be in office. So now it is our time. I never forgot that. It was the word let that really threw me under the bus. And I feel like white allies is a terrible term. And I just have a hard time trusting white people. And I really have a hard time trusting white women. Like, I already look at white men one way, but white women, I really have a hard time dealing with. See, now I go back and I examine all my relationships with white women, and how they talk to me and the things that they've said. So, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from and where Addis is coming from in the book.
Yeah, and so there's even a white man who is, he's been a part of the movement in Monroe, like, since he was a teenager. He's been around, in this Black community, accepted in this Black community in a way that Sabine is not accepted. And, I think, I don't. That may be a little misogyny as well, why he has an easier time than she does. But also it's been different because he was much younger when he was accepted into that community. But yeah, there is just this inherent, distrust of white womanhood. Because there's just been too many examples of white women who, are just so complicit in keeping this system, and can be more dangerous because, again, there's this, idea of, white women being these fragile, delicate, harmless, people, and through that they can cause so much damage, and can even be worse. Like we saw in, Solomon Northup's story, 12 Years a Slave, they have, white women were causing, Black women to be beaten. They were doing the beatings themselves. I mean, even so, Taddy in this situation in the book, she's burned. She is put under a flame by the enslaver's wife, who is jealous. Yeah, she was jealous because, the enslaver's wife can't have children, and Taddy has had 2 kids. And by even though it's rape, that's something that, the enslaver's wife, is upset by and jealous of, and she causes her physical harm. And so there's this, idea that, white supremacy is limited to, white men. But even if you look at these historical photos of Black men and women and children being lynched, there are white women and children there as well. Even, during the civil rights movement,
exactly.
When Ruby Bridges is trying to get into school, you have white women spitting on her, white women holding up signs, yelling, and being a roadblock. So, like, there's just too much history to just accept, white womanhood as, as something to be allied with, like, even as a woman, like, we're not the same. We don't want the same things. We're not on the same team. Womanhood is not enough to connect us because you don't see me.
It's not. Yeah. It's not enough to connect us, clearly. Because if it was, we would be in a different place.
Exactly.
And you'd be acting differently.
That's the thing. All those white women turned on Hillary.
Right. Right. Her own people turned on her.
That is just, it's amazing to me.
It's insane. Yeah. It's insane. So, now I found that your book had a lot of twists and turns. So I thought that was really cool. Some of the people that you thought were on Addis' side probably weren't, or on the side of the enslaved Black people weren't. And some people that you thought weren't on her side were. So I thought that was a really good take as well. And I imagine that is just how life is,
Yeah.
The people that you think are in your corner really aren't. And I love that part of your book too.
Yeah. And it's just like, just in revolutionary situations, or, even within the Black Lives Matter movement, like, there is just a lot of contention that's happening. There's a lot of, even, with the Black Panthers, the COINTELPRO, like, you don't know who you're supposed to trust. And that's kind of the point. That is kind of the point of, putting dissension into these movements, so that everybody's paranoid. Everybody, if you're all paranoid, if you can't trust each other, then you can't get anything done. Mm-hmm. So, I think that is just kind of intrinsic to, revolutionary movements, that there's just going to be, you're just going to feel like there is, there are people who you can't trust. You can't trust with everything. You can't trust with your life. And so if you have one person that you can hold on to, like, Addis feels like Ekweme is the one person, or Ekwema is the one person that she can fully trust. This is her lover, this is her love. And even that person is not necessarily someone who is going to tell her 100% the truth. So, we're just really out here kind of alone. We're going to have to go by faith, because you just never know. You just really never know who is actually on your side, and who is on your side up until the point until it's between you and them.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. And I think that's just how life is.
Yeah.
You pray that your faith in this person won't get you killed.
Yeah, basically.
Real talk. All right. So something exciting just happened to you, and I really want you to talk about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, I just found out that I won the Black Caucus of the American Library Association's Literary Award for self-published fiction, and that was just a really amazing honor to get, particularly because this book has been so rejected by so many people in the publishing industry. And it was, a large part of the reason why I decided to stop shopping my book to traditional publishing and to publish the book on my own through my own press. And so for, such an esteemed organization as the Black Caucus of the American Library Association to recognize my book, to recognize self-published works in general, I just think is such a big deal, because there are just so few literary organizations that do. There are so few literary prizes that allow self-published authors to even enter that space. And so, I'm winning my award alongside Jacqueline Woodson for Another Brooklyn. So she won for traditional publishing and fiction. And so and there's going to be a really great ceremony in August that I'm looking forward to in Atlanta, at the National Black Librarians Conference. And so just to be in the same space as those people, as, Clint Smith, who won for poetry, and, Margot Lee Shetterly, who won for Hidden Figures for nonfiction, to have all of our books in the same spaces, it's just, it's extremely validating. It just, you never know if you're going to self-publish whether this is something that's going to be worth it. It's going to be 100% of your own time and energy and effort. It is that much harder to get people to pay attention to you, to get media outlets to write about you, to get people to care in general when you don't have the validation and the backing of a major publisher.
Well, congratulations are absolutely in order, honestly, because your book is fire and you deserve whatever is coming your way. Truly.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, you said that your book is part of a 3-part series earlier.
Yes.
Okay. So is your book actually out for people to actually purchase?
Yeah. The first book is out now.
Okay.
I'm working on the second book, and that will be out in February 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm hoping, every year, maybe every other year, to release these next 2 books in the series to complete the series. So I'm very excited about that, and to continue on in this journey with these characters. and to see how it goes. I mean, like there were so many stories that I came across in my research that I had never learned in school.
Yeah.
You know, I now have multiple degrees, never, and studied, Black culture and never heard the stories, like the story of Oni Judge. That's the Black woman I want to shout out, by the way. I want to shout out Oni Judge, who was the inspiration for Addis as a character. Oni Judge was enslaved to George Washington. And while they were in Philadelphia, after she had served George Washington and Martha their dinner, she escaped out of the back of the house, and she never came back, and she, remained free for the rest of her life. And, he pursued her relentlessly until he died. He stopped pursuing her maybe 2 weeks before he died, and no one ever came after her again once he died. But I mean, he actually enacted the Fugitive Slave Act to get her back, to make people, turn over people who were formerly enslaved but have now found freedom. He created this law so that to force people to return people to slavery. And for Oni Judge specifically, and for her children, the children that she had after she escaped, he wanted to bring all of them back to him. And she was protected. She maintained her freedom until the day she died, and was able to tell her story to journalists on 2 separate occasions. So, this woman, I just wish that I had known about her, as a younger. I mean, I found out about her totally by accident. This is not somebody who is heralded. When I'm learning Black culture, we have the greatest hits, basically, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, et cetera. And that's, this story of Oni Judge, just was never told to me. And I just thought about, I created Addis, as somebody who defied the first president and lived to tell about it because of Oni, and thought about how much of a difference that might have made to other enslaved people if they had known there was this woman who defied the most powerful person in their nation and was able to live and tell her story. So I wanted that to be something. I wanted to bring that story to life in a different way, and to give, more enslaved people an opportunity to know that story in my fictional world, and have that have a huge impact on them.
Yeah, there's so many of our stories that are either erased or, only our great grandparents know about it and it's talked to, or it might be journaled somewhere. So yeah, I love that story. I didn't know anything about her. So thank you for enlightening me like that.
Of course. Yeah, there's actually a book out right now that's all about Oni Judge. It's a nonfiction book. I can't remember who the author is, but they just did a profile on it, and the author, the Black woman author, in the New York Times. So yeah, there's definitely people are learning more about Oni Judge specifically, and yeah, it's a great story. It's a great part of our history.
Okay, I'm gonna look into that. Now, I know that we, before I let you go, I wanted us to do some book recommendations. Do you have maybe a fiction and a nonfiction book that you can recommend for people?
So the thing is, I have an entire syllabus that I would like to recommend. If you go to bookofaddis.com, I have the Book of Addis syllabus, which has like everything that I used to help me formulate
your
this
story.
book.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's nonfiction, it's fiction. There are the museums that I visited. There's the music that I listened to. And it's all kind of broken up by topic too. So I have books, on reproductive justice and the politics of Black motherhood, misogynoir, deconstructing white masculine ideology and reimagining Black masculinity, the power of writing and speaking in the vernacular, Black protest and revolution, the history of Africans in America, and Igbo and Yoruba culture. So there are all the things that I use broken up by those topics on my syllabus, and you can download it. or just, everything's hyperlinked too. So you can, click on that and find out how to read these resources, or listen to the resources, the playlists and things like that I made. But as far as recommendations specifically, the Book of Night Women by Marlon James really shaped this book for me. I wanted to write the book in the third person, but I did not think that I could write in the third person and also write in vernacular. I had never seen it before. I didn't think that was possible. And then I read Book of Night Women, and Marlon James does exactly that. So it's not necessarily third person, but it feels like third person. And so that just felt like, to me, gave me permission to write this book in vernacular in the third person. And it's just a beautiful book. It's about enslaved women in Jamaica, and the rebellion that they try to have there, similar to the Haitian Revolution, but with, varying results. But it's a very beautiful, very powerful book. So that's fiction.
Mm-hmm. And did you have any? Because I can certainly refer people to your website, because it sounds like as if you've got some great resources there.
Oh, there's a ton. There are a ton there. Well,
while you think about it, I'm going to give a couple of mine, okay?
Oh, great.
So there's a book called At the Dark End of the Street by Danielle McGuire. And it really is about Black women and some of the things that we went through before the Civil Rights era. And it's a lot of the stories that we won't normally hear. It's not again, it's a tough read. If you're a human being, it's a tough read because some of the things that we went through as Black women, but I found it to be very triumphant, and it enlightened me on some things I didn't know, because again, I grew up in Alaska, so you can imagine the type of education I got on my Black history, much less as a Black woman, which is, equates to zero. And I'll be honest, my parents really didn't talk about it. So I find myself at my age just hungry for information about who I was, or where I came from, or the type of women that I would have been in that era. And I found that book to be really interesting. I also liked Angela Y. Davis, Freedom is a Constant Struggle. And it still is a struggle. That's a great book. I love that one. And then another one that I recommend is Sister Citizen by Melissa Perry. And that's a really well written book as well. It's written exactly how she how she talks. And I love that book as well. That's another one of my recommendations. Did you think of the nonfiction one, or I can just recommend people to go to your site if not?
Definitely go to the site. But I mean, The Fire Next Time is everything. James Baldwin. That is just that. There is in the beginning of that book, there is this. He's writing a letter to his nephew, basically, and he's basically telling his nephew that he was created to be loved. Like, I mean, that did something to me. There are so many messages that we get as Black people. From a very young age, basically, that there are things that we have to do in order to be loved, in order to be respected, in order to be considered human. And he just tells his nephew, like, no, like all of those messages that you're gonna get, that you may be getting them right now, because socialization starts from birth. So, no matter what you're hearing, no matter what you're saying, like what may be said to you, you were created to be loved and to be sheltered from the harm that's in the world, the evil that's in the world. You deserve that. And, it may not happen to you. You may not be protected from those things, but you are inherently worthy of that. And I just think that it's such an amazing book, for people who are trying to heal from systemic racism, from the impact of that. And just trying to filter out anti-Blackness. Again, that is one of the main goals that I had not just for the characters in my book, but also for myself in writing the book, and for the reader as well, that they would go on this journey to filtering out anti-Blackness. And The Fire Next Time, definitely helps with that. But there are also, a ton of slave narratives that are on the list as well, that were written by the slaves themselves. The interesting narrative of the life of Oluwadu Equiano, who was an Igbo enslaved person in what is now the UK. Just that's a beautiful story, and I learned so much about what it was like for him to be enslaved, outside of America. Because that's, what I love about Freedom is a Constant Struggle, and Angela Davis in general, is her focus on globalization, is her focus on how our struggles are interconnected. And we have to start looking at our struggles as global and not just local, like what is, the chants from Black Lives Matter marches, from Ferguson to Palestine. Like, you have to see how all of these things are connected. So, looking into Equiano's life, and how his struggle mirrors what was happening in the Caribbean, what was happening in America. And seeing how connected our struggles are, and that until we start connecting our struggles, until we start seeing how inherently intertwined our struggles are, we can't actually be free. We can't look at, what's going on with immigration and say, as Black American citizens, that it doesn't impact us, because our Somali brothers and sisters are being deported at, astronomical rates right now,
Right.
like are Black people in America. And, yes, they are Somalian, but that is our struggle too. And we need to be on the front lines for them as well. So once we start understanding the global nature of these struggles, then we can start to actually have to dismantle these systems, and have some widespread change.
Yeah, you made some great points there. So the book is called, again, Book of Addis, Cradled, Embers. Where can they find your book?
So you can buy Book of Addis, Cradled, Embers at bookofaddis.com. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Barnes & Noble. It's on Kindle as well if you want the ebook. You can go to any Barnes & Noble and ask them to order it for you. You can go to your library and ask them to order it for you. There are a ton of ways to get it. So yeah, that's how it's out there, or it's for you wherever you'd like to get it.
Perfect. And then how can people get in touch with you?
So the best way is through my website, brookobie.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at Brooke Obie. That's OBIE. So yeah, all of my social media handles are Brooke Obie. Okay. So yeah, please reach out. I love getting emails and tweets and Facebook messages about where you're at in the book. That's just like my favorite thing. Or pictures of you with the book. I'd love to put that up on Instagram too. So yes, definitely send it all my way.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I absolutely adored your book. I can't wait to read it again. I need to read it a couple more times. But I hope that everyone really got a good idea of how the book is written and the way that you put your love and sweat and tears into it. So I thank you again for joining me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to basically end the show with some options for you as a Black woman. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about a video that went viral. So first, I wanted to give you some options for something different to use other than Shea Moisture. I'm a little late to the game because, of course, I don't do this show every week or so. But I do know about the whole Shea Moisture controversy and the commercials they made that were really disrespectful. And so I wanted to give us some options, because you don't have to go to a company who basically leaves you in the dust when they start making real money. You don't have to pay for a product that doesn't appreciate you as a consumer, because there's so many products out there that we have access to as natural Black women that we never have to deal with that type of shit. So I wanted to give a list of some of the products that I thought that I know of that are in your local stores. And then I also have linked a really good article that gives you a bunch of different companies that cater to natural Black women. It's so different than when I first started being natural, when there was basically nothing, no products on the market. But now there's so many products out there that you never have to deal with somebody treating you in a way that makes you feel terrible. And I really did not like the way that Shea Moisture basically shit on Black women, who were the ones that built that company from scratch. And, keep in mind that while you may not be familiar with these companies, if you go to YouTube, which is our mecca, and just type in the name of the product, you can find so many reviews about each of these companies. You can find what type of hair it works on. You can see how they worked it in, the whole nine, and try these out for yourselves. The article also has a bunch of different websites, so you can click on the website, of course, read the reviews. So you just never feel like you have to deal with the type of stuff that Shea Moisture was shoveling to us. So here's some of my list. Of course, like I said, that article is much larger. All of the products I'm going to mention are actually in your major stores like Sally's or CVS or Target or Walmart. So you don't have to go to a beauty supply store to pick them up. I'm going to start with the ones that I know I love. Kinky Curly is a really good line. They have something called Not Today. That's a leave-in conditioner. And then Curling Custard, which is also really good. Talia Wajid, I've been using her for years. She has something called a Protective Mist Bodifier, which is fantastic for your braids under your weave, or if you're wearing crochet braids, or if you have a toile or a puff. It's a really light leave-in mist, and your hair feels fantastic afterwards. But there's some other products that I've heard of that have gotten some really great reviews, like Camille Rose. I know I've seen that company in CVS, and they have an almond joy twisting butter I heard was really good. The Curls line, I've seen that in multiple stores. They have a blueberry bliss line, which includes like a hair mask, a growth oil, twisting cream. Eden Body Works, I've seen that in Walmart. There is a coconut shea line that has a hair mask and a curl defining cream. Oyen Handmade is another company. They have a juices and berries leave-in and a burnt sugar pomade. I know that they are in Sally's. So like I said, there are so many companies out there that cater to us. So use them. It's no different than the women that I want, to be on Secret Sauce. Use the companies that are here to cater to us. Okay? But next, I really wanted to send a shout out to a young lady named Esha Jordan. She did a video on Facebook that went viral, and it was about a joke that was made on the Ricky Smiley Show. This Ricky Smiley Show, if you're not familiar, it's a nationally syndicated morning talk show where he and a bunch of friends get on there and they make jokes or what have you. I don't think he's funny, but and he's from out here in Atlanta, but he's a pretty huge show. And he said something that she really didn't like, and I'm going to let her explain it in her own words.
So I look a hot mess because I'm not a morning person at all. My face is ashy. All right, my voice is a little deep when I wake up, but never mind that. I want to talk about something that I just heard on the radio while I was in the car. Now, I waited until I got back home because I didn't want to be driving and fussing. So yeah. Every morning, I get up and I listen to the Ricky Smiley Morning Show. And I'm a huge fan of Ricky Smiley. I love me some Ricky Smiley. He lost a fan this morning. And I'm going to tell you why. I understand his comedic views. Like, I understand where he comes from with, you know, his jokes that he tell. But in 2017, the way shit is going amongst black people, one of the jokes that he said this morning took it a little bit too far for me. And it was completely just out of nowhere, which made it even more unnecessary, because it has to deal with dark-skinned black women, and they seem to always be the butt of jokes. And regardless of my skin tone and me being lighter, I'm still a black woman, all right? So my job is to defend black women, no matter what shade they are, when they are being attacked and ridiculed for no fucking reason. The joke went as such, completely out of nowhere, because he was doing his paternity test Tuesday thing on there. He says, just completely out of the left fucking field, a dark-skinned woman walked into my kitchen the other day, and my skillet started laughing. They started giggling. And I'm sitting there in my car, and it hits me, okay, he's making the analogy that the girl is so damn dark that his black skillets are giggling at her skin shade. How the fuck is this funny at all? For one, you're implying that being dark-skinned is something that's laughable. It's something that should bring a giggle or two for someone to be dark-skinned. It's in no way, shape, or form fucking funny. And I am past tired, especially of black men ridiculing our black women. I'm fucking tired of it. I'm done. And people look at me crazy because I'm not even dark-skinned, no. But I have dark-skinned nieces, dark-skinned nephews. My older brother is darker than me. You're not going to keep knocking our people as if black is not beautiful. This is the bullshit, and the main reason why black women have the lowest self-esteem is because our black men do not even fucking support us. Y'all talk all this shit about us, and then when we break and try to change our appearance, you fuck around and talk about that too. Well, damn. It's bad enough that our skin is mocked and made fun of by white people. We turn around and our backbones, which is our men that should support us and stand up for us, y'all turn around and fucking talk about us too. Where the fuck does that leave us? And y'all wonder why black women are so horrible to deal with. They have attitude problems. They bullheaded. They act like they too strong. We have to, because majority of our men are bitches and pussies and don't stand up for us. Matter of fact, they're the ones that bash and knock us the fuck down. I'm pissed off that a celebrity of his stature would say such a fucking thing, especially since he has brown-skinned daughters. But I guess they're not that bad because they're not that dark. Ricky Smiley, I hope somehow, some way this video reach your ass and you recant what the fuck you said, because that shit wasn't funny at all. I got a couple jokes for your crackhead looking ass, but I'm not gonna go in on you this morning. Cause I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I could burn your ass alive. I could damn near take your job if I got on your ass. But I'm not gonna do that. I just want you to apologize to every dark-skinned, beautiful woman and little girl that's already going through hell because of her skin color. I want you to personally apologize for the bullshit that you said this morning. I'm going to go and sit down for my blood pressure get too damn high.
System. Do you see black people at the head?
So yeah, shout out to you, Mama. I am a dark-skinned woman, and she's right. We're always the butt of jokes, and it gets super old. First of all, that joke wasn't funny. Let's start with that. The joke was, a dark-skinned woman walked in my kitchen once, and the skillet started laughing. Yeah, no, that shit was terrible. Ricky Smiley is black as hell. I don't know what even inspired him to say something like that. So yeah, shout out to you, Mama, for doing that. And so I decided, for jokes, for shits and giggles, I guess, to go to the comments section, because why the hell not? Let me see what's going on in that comment section. She has almost 10,000 comments. And I'm just going to take out a few of them. And I'm going to say their names because they said some ignorant ass shit. So I'm going to say their names because they said it. And I'm just reading what they said. All right. So Joe Johnson, this is his comment. And you trying to get likes, bitch. You ain't even black. Let me stop right there. She is black. She's just lighter skinned. You the only fan he lost, so what? He's a comedian, jackass, LOL. All this shit he say and that joke makes you not want to be a fan? Fuck out of here. Okay. Let's go to another one. This one's from Noble Chuck Jr. Girl, go to sleep. It was a joke. He wasn't bashing. It wasn't even a topic, which was her exact point, dummy. You just too damn pro-black to see when good fun is in the air. Can't stand you revolutionary ass people always making something about race. Our people have bigger problems. Stay focused. So let's just go with those two comments. So the first comment, he's telling her to shut the fuck up. Yeah. The second comment is, don't care about what you're saying. It don't even matter. Right. Which is the same thing that they're always saying to black women. Either shut up or your topic isn't that important, so it doesn't matter. My personal favorite comment was from someone named Collie Young. Why do dumb hoes want to start shit? All y'all did was prove her point. That was exactly her point. Black men are forever shitting on black women, and I don't know why. Ricky Smiley could have made that joke about black people. He could have made that joke about a black man, but a black woman is way too easy to attack. When I look at her responses, those 10,000 responses, 90% of those responses are from black men telling her to shut up, telling her that she shouldn't have said it only for black women. She should have said this for black men. Yo, y'all are really the problem here, and you just don't see it. You don't get it. We're tired of being the butt of jokes. We're tired of being told that we're less than. And we're really tired of being told that our feelings don't matter. So, fuck you to Ricky Smiley. Fuck you, especially a big fuck you to all those dudes that took the time out their day to make a comment on this young lady's post. And shout out to you, Esha, for looking out. Another black woman looking out for black women. I love it. Thank you so much for listening. Your support means everything to us. If you have feedback, something you want to discuss, or you own a business you like to promote, please contact us at bwsbusiness@mtrnetwork.net. Remember, you are beautiful, you're brilliant, and you're bad as fuck. Support another black woman today. Bye.